Item number 8, public hearings. We have 2 public hearings this evening. The first public hearing, item A, hold a public hearing and adopt a resolution certifying the final environmental impact report for the San Bruno Transit Corridors Plan. Adopt a resolution amending the general plan to ensure consistency with the Transit Corridors Plan, and adopt a resolution adopting the San Bruno Transit Corridors Plan and provide direction regarding next steps. Staff report, please.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council.
Through the chair?
I am sorry. Please proceed.
I thought you were going to do it for me, so I was waiting. Mr. Mayor, as in the past with the transit corridor, due to my residence inside the transit corridor area, I'll have to recuse myself on this item.
Okay. And through the chair, for the same reason, I have been advised that I too must recuse myself.
Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, it is a great pleasure to be here tonight with a significant piece of work that has consumed a large amount of attention by staff and by the community over the past 4 years. We would have liked to have brought this item forward more expediently, but unfortunately, it is one of the many items that experienced some delay with the tragic circumstances of the September 9th, 2010 explosion and fire. So we're doubly happy to be here tonight with the culmination of this work effort and the exciting promise that this plan lays out for the community of San Bruno. We have a thorough and comprehensive staff report tonight, after which we would ask that you take public comment and then deliberate among yourselves prior to taking the actions that are proposed for your attention tonight. And I'll turn over to staff in just one moment, but I wanted to recognize the significant work effort and the attention and dedication in bringing this vision plan forward that's been devoted by the staff members to my right. Mark Sullivan and Laura Russell in particular have shepherded this project and have, in large measure, not only shepherded, but it conceived the vision that it represents and have nurtured the promise that this plan provides for the future of revitalization and the continuing vitality of the critical central portion of our community. So with that, I would ask our new Director of Community Development, who I would have recognized, except that he's only been here a couple of weeks, and so he has the exciting opportunity to see this plan from this point forward into actual implementation. So with that, I'll ask David to make a few comments, and then he will turn over to staff. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is David Woltering. I'm the city's Community Development Director. It's really my pleasure to be here this evening to work with you in this community to bring forward this plan for consideration tonight. This particular plan is an area-wide revitalization plan referred to as the San Bruno Transit Corridors Plan, or TCP. This plan is a specific plan, and a specific plan is defined in state planning law, and this is a type of plan that blends policy and regulatory requirements. The regulatory requirements might be things like height limits or land use stipulations. It's the same type of plan that was prepared and used to guide the successful development of the Crossing mixed-use project here in town along the northwesterly side of El Camino Real. Work on this plan began in 2008 when the city's redevelopment agency approved preparation of a specific plan to guide the redevelopment of the city's downtown core along San Mateo Avenue and the streets directly adjacent to it, including El Camino Real, San Bruno Avenue, and Huntington Avenue. The overall project area is about 150 acres in size. Also in 2008, the City Council appointed a 17-member steering committee which represented a broad range of community interest to assist with the preparation of this plan. It was envisioned that this plan would be the catalyst to revitalize this important area of the community. One might ask, why was this plan necessary? And as one would look at the planning area, the 150 acres that I described, it was noted that there were some vacant buildings, some areas that were in disrepair, deferred maintenance, some land uses that weren't entirely compatible with the area, street improvements and landscape treatments that seemed out of date and could be upgraded. While the planning area offers some areas of concern, it also offers tremendous opportunity for the San Bruno community. It's an area that includes the downtown core. It's an area that has a wide range of transportation options, BART, Caltrain, a variety of bus lines and highways in the vicinity. Geographically, the area is close to San Francisco, the Silicon Valley, and wider San Francisco Bay Area. So while there are concerns, there's tremendous opportunity here. This community-based planning effort that's been going on for several years now included a wide range of research, public input, and review, and it did include the preparation of a full environmental impact report, or EIR. With the preparation of this EIR, there were some significant and unavoidable impacts identified. In fact, 6 areas of potentially significant and unavoidable impacts. And these areas had to do with traffic, with noise, and with historic buildings. Staff needs to point out that the state law, the California Environmental Quality Act, allows, though, that as communities look at potentially significant and unavoidable impacts, there's an opportunity to also look at the benefits of a plan, and if the community identifies that there are certain social or economic benefits of the plan that may outweigh those potentially significant impacts, the community can go ahead and approve the plan. And that's done with a statement of overriding considerations, and that's part of the plan and part of your consideration this evening. Staff has prepared an overall presentation for you this evening, and as our city manager, Connie Jackson, has indicated, our 2 planners that have worked substantially on this project, Mark Sullivan and Laura Russell, will be presenting the overall presentation this evening. Mark is going to start off by giving kind of an overview of the vision and how that vision was developed in terms of the community process. And then he'll pass off the presentation to Laura Russell, our associate planner. And Laura will talk about the measures, the implementation tools, the planning tools and measures that this community can use and are included in the document to actually realize this vision. And then Laura will pass the presentation back to Mark, and Mark will talk more about such things as the benefits of the plan, what it's going to take for implementation, the specific actions before the City Council this evening, and then also next steps. Following the presentation, we'd be happy to respond to any questions you might have. And at this point, I'd like to turn things over to Mark.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members. The Transit Corridors Plan builds on the vision and policies of the city's general plan. The Transit Corridors Plan creates an exciting new vision for how the project area could develop over time and establishes a framework for revitalization and redevelopment of the commercial corridors around the new Caltrain station, including design guidelines as a roadmap to help achieve that vision. The plan area was chosen based on the existing commercial corridors and walking distance to the Caltrain station. The vision for the Transit Corridors Plan was created by the community during 2 community workshops. A 17-member steering committee then helped to develop the plan building on the vision framework, as well as input from community stakeholders. Outreach has included widely noticed public meetings and communications with residents. Notices were mailed to 2,500 residents for recent public meetings. Most recently, these have included a Planning Commission public hearing in April of 2012 to discuss the environmental impact report, a City Council study session in October of last year, and the Planning Commission public hearing in November, where the Planning Commission recommended that the City Council approve the plan. Open house meetings were held at City Hall in December and January. Additional outreach has included articles in the City Focus newsletter, a project website that has received over 800 visits and 540 unique visits from individuals, as well as community development staff communicating directly with residents at the counter, by phone, and in email on an ongoing basis. Three concerns stand out in our communications with residents in the plan area and surrounding the plan area, and I'm going to discuss those right up front. The first is the subject of eminent domain. People are concerned that there could be eminent domain associated with the plan, and that couldn't be further from the truth. The plan does not propose eminent domain of any existing residential properties, and in fact, we've included language that will be in the final version of the plan that explicitly states that. What the residents were also concerned about what the plan might require them to do with their properties. Property owners within the project area will not be required to make any changes unless there is a proposal to redevelop the property. However, the plan does give property owners more options on how they can develop their properties by allowing mixed-use development, which is not currently allowed, and clear direction with design guidelines. And thirdly, residents were concerned about the impacts of taller buildings on adjacent single-family houses. The plan includes measures to minimize the impacts of new development on residential neighborhoods to the greatest extent possible. The plan will include a summary of those measures as an appendix, and it's also included in the resolution adopting the plan in your packet. And Laura will speak to this issue in her presentation a bit later. Several of these slides show current conditions in the area and then superimpose what the vision proposes for the area. So the community vision was the guiding force behind the development of the plan. The vision expresses the long-term desired future for the transit corridors area. There are 7 elements in the vision for the plan area, and the first is downtown as a day and night destination. The plan will promote downtown as a destination for workers and residents by encouraging new businesses such as restaurants, cafes, and shopping on the ground floor with housing on top. Local character and a distinctive identity. The area should have a distinct identity building on local character and history. Local history should be integrated into public art and streetscape. Welcoming gateways should greet visitors, and the plan should set a high standard for architectural quality. Convenient multimodal transportation network. Transportation improvements should make getting around the transit corridors area easy and convenient to encourage transit use and visiting San Bruno, linking pedestrians, bicycles, shuttles, buses, BART, Caltrain, as well as automobiles. Economic vitality. The transit corridors area should be development and business friendly with a market-based approach to encourage growth, attract investor interest, and respond to local and regional market demands. The plan envisions new job opportunities and revenue opportunities for the city. Sustainable mixed-use development. The plan envisions a mix of commercial and residential buildings, allowing taller buildings up to 4, 5, and 7 floors in specified areas to add vitality and foot traffic, and to more fully realize the nearby transportation opportunities that the city offers. The plan envisions up to 1,610 new housing units as well as office and retail uses. The plan allows flexibility to plan for changing needs and preferences, such as housing for young workers and an aging population. A safe and inviting pedestrian environment. The plan envisions attractive and coordinated street and landscape improvements that encourage walking by providing highly visible side crosswalks, attractive design, landscaping, and traffic calming. A vibrant transit village. The station area should be developed as an attractive, vibrant transit village around the new Caltrain station, including a memorable gateway to the city of San Bruno, and the city should also promote economic ties to companies in the region to promote office uses in the station area. And that concludes the discussion of the vision. Now Laura will talk about the tools to implement the plan.
Thanks, Mark. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. I will be talking about the tools that we have in the plan to reach the vision, and also a little bit about how the plan is sensitive to existing residential uses. So the Transit Corridors Plan is organized around 5 character areas that were created to address the unique strengths and also the opportunities in the different areas of the plan. So you can see here on the map, and the City Council should have the color versions in front of them as well, that the yellow area is the Caltrain station area. This is envisioned as a high-intensity, transit-oriented development. We call that TOD in planner speak. It emphasizes office uses, since most of it is within the 70 decibel airport noise contour, where no new residential uses are allowed. The blue area is El Camino Real, which emphasizes residential and commercial at key intersections, and that aligns with the Grand Boulevard Initiative. The green area is San Bruno Avenue and Huntington Avenue south of 380, where the plan envisions mixed uses and streetscape improvements. Orange is Huntington Avenue north of 380 that could include streetscape, bicycle, and pedestrian improvements over time. The pink area, of course, is the downtown area, where the community wanted to maintain the Main Street feel of that area with new commercial and residential opportunities. The plan proposes development standards that would create the maximum building envelope for new projects. A key component of that is height. The plan proposes an increase in height for several reasons. To provide enough residents in the community to encourage transit ridership and for shopping locally, for good urban design in terms of proportion, massing, and scale, and also to provide economic feasibility to redevelop some of the underutilized properties in the plan area. Under the current height limit of 3 stories, developers cannot include enough units or floor area to be cost effective. This is what's been reported back to us by numerous developers over the years. The high cost of land on the peninsula, as well as the cost of underground parking, make a 3-story development too expensive to work for them. So projects are more likely to pencil out if they're within the 4 to 5-story range. So basically, you're familiar with some of this terminology, but that's like a 3 to 4 stories of wood frame construction over a podium. I know you've heard those terms before and seen it in construction in some other places. So if this height limit is increased, older commercial properties will be more likely to redevelop and help achieve the revitalization goals of the plan. However, the height limits in the plan would require a citywide vote under Ordinance 1284. So you can see in this slide that height is proposed as a number of stories as well as in feet. In most cases, the number of stories would be the more restrictive measure. The height in feet is included to allow developers some flexibility in the floor-to-ceiling heights, depending on the kinds of buildings they may propose. The tallest height is proposed in the station area, west of San Mateo Avenue and closest to the tracks. The proposed height at that location is 7 stories. That's to maximize the transit-oriented development, the TOD potential of that location, and also to appeal to Class A office users. El Camino Real, San Bruno Avenue, and Huntington Avenue south of 380 are proposed at 5 stories. The lowest maximum height in the plan area is 4 stories, and that's in the downtown. Again, because the community vision was to maintain the Main Street feel of the downtown area. So the next tools are setback and step back. The plan proposes front setbacks to create space for pedestrians, landscaping, and outdoor dining where that would be appropriate. There is also a new requirement for rear setbacks when a project is adjacent to existing low-density residential. A new concept in the transit corridor plan is a step back. You can see in this diagram that the upper floors are set in or stepped back further than the lower floors. This reduces the mass and bulk of new buildings. You can also see in this diagram that the trees soften the height a little bit of buildings in this mass and scale. Stepbacks would be required above the 3rd or 4th floor, depending on the location. So the council is probably aware, but just as a brief reminder about what is floor area, what is the floor area ratio? So the floor area ratio, or FAR, is the ratio of building square footage to the size of the land. So you can see in this diagram, just to talk about floor area, that a 2.0 FAR can vary. If the building takes up the whole lot, it would be 2 stories, or it may be taller if it takes up less of the lot. So a majority of the existing sites in the plan area are less than 20,000 square feet, and for those parcels, the FAR limit is 2.0. So these pictures on the slide give examples of what a 2.0 FAR might look like. Of course, if buildings are constructed, they would still have to meet the setback and the step back requirements. For parcels greater than 20,000 square feet, the plan proposes a change, and that's to remove the FAR limit and regulate by height, setback, and step back, basically the maximum building envelope. This would help direct larger development to the larger parcels in the community where it's more appropriate to do a large-scale development, and also afford more room for good site planning. There are currently about 25 sites in the plan area that are 20,000 square feet or larger. In other cases, developers would have to do land assembly in order to get that size and not have a floor area ratio limit. So the maximum building envelope proposed by the plan could only take place on those 25 sites or if other sites are assembled over time. So we would expect to see this an incremental change over many years. So when you look at this diagram of the maximum building envelope, it still looks boxy, right? This gives us an idea of what the maximum can be, but it doesn't really speak to the quality of the design that we'd like to see in the community. And so that's when we apply the design guidelines to improve the quality of the design. So each project would have to comply with the standards and the guidelines, and these tools working together bring us to quality projects and reduce the mass of buildings. So staff proposes to implement the transit corridor plan guidelines the same way as we have the residential design guidelines, which has worked well. For each project, the Planning Commission or Architectural Review Committee would have to make a finding of fact that the project complies with the design guidelines in the transit corridor plan. So I'd like to go over just a few of those guidelines with you. There are many within the plan. It's very important that applicants break up the building mass with varying planes. You can see the planes are set in more or less in this picture, as well as windows and architectural details. And also in this picture, you can see both horizontal and vertical elements. We can see here good building articulation with a mix of materials, windows, balconies, and architectural details. The plan calls out key intersections such as the corner of San Bruno Avenue and El Camino Real, and at those locations, the architecture should anchor the corner. And so that can be done with strong entrance features, articulation, ground floor transparencies, and strong materials at the base. So I'd like to move on to the transportation policies within the plan, bringing the land uses, the design, and the transportation together. In a transit-oriented development area, it's important to implement the idea of complete streets, which you're familiar with from the policy you considered in December. Complete streets can be understood as an approach that considers all users of the street network. That's pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, people with disabilities, and transit users. The plan also encourages a park once and walk strategy. This is especially in the downtown area. And this approach seeks to make the most of the existing parking supply. The plan proposes that the city consider a study to do a parking in lieu fee, and that could potentially be used to fund a centrally located and well-designed parking structure. Another proposed approach is shared parking, which allows businesses with different peak demand to share their parking spaces. It's important to note that the plan would still require off-site parking for new developments. There are some transit-oriented development plans that waive parking requirements completely, and this plan does not propose to do that. On-site parking would still be required. But the required amount is proposed to decrease compared to our current municipal code. So as an example, a one-bedroom apartment would require one space in the transit corridor plan area instead of the current requirement of 2 spaces. So the question has been raised by the residents and by the Planning Commission: how is the plan sensitive to the existing residential areas? So the plan was developed to help projects transition into the existing city. But as we went through the community input process, we realized we still need to make some changes to the plan and bring more emphasis to this. So the first important point is that all new buildings will go through a public review process. For each project, staff would analyze the transition to adjacent low-density housing and make sure the applicant addresses things like building design, privacy impacts, and exterior lighting. The Planning Commission or Architectural Review Committee would have to make a finding of fact related to transitions. So this will bring attention to this issue and make applicants aware that this is an important community priority. I'd also like to emphasize 2 new development standards that came through the public review process. First, the plan proposes a 10-foot rear setback throughout the entire plan area when the project is adjacent to residential uses. This could actually be considered an improvement over the existing commercial zoning that has 0 setback requirements. Second, again, based on community comments, the step back requirements next to residential were increased. So as proposed tonight, when a project is adjacent to low-density residential, a step back of 15 feet is required above the 3rd floor. So this increased step back would help to mitigate concerns like light, shadow, and privacy concerns. And as I mentioned, on-site parking would still be required for all new projects. We have heard from the community that they are concerned about spillover parking into residential neighborhoods. To address this, the plan recommends expanding the residential permit parking program. So the city already has such a program that could be expanded to address those needs. Permits could be issued to residents, allowing for enforcement of non-residents. And this approach has been successful in many other communities, both around intensive land uses such as schools, as well as in transit intensive areas like this. So staff does believe it would mitigate those concerns considerably. So now I'll turn it back over to Mark. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to first go into just a little bit of detail about the environmental impact report. A full environmental impact report was prepared to inform decision makers and the public of potential environmental impacts. For each plan policy, the EIR, or Environmental Impact Report, determines whether there is a no impact, whether there is a less than significant impact, a less than significant impact when mitigated, or a significant and unavoidable impact. These impacts were discussed in detail at a City Council study session earlier last year, and also at the Planning Commission meeting in April. What's important here is the EIR identified 6 impacts that are considered significant and unavoidable. These impacts relate to three intersections and 1 roadway segment. Also, noise associated with traffic and a historical building impact. The traffic impacts involve delays ranging from about 12 additional seconds at an intersection to 1 minute and 40 seconds at the intersection of El Camino Real and San Bruno Avenue. The 6 unavoidable impacts are not unusual given the scope and long-term time frame of this plan. For example, the Redwood City downtown plan had well over, it was close to 30 significant unavoidable impacts. And it's also really important to remember that the EIR analyzed the worst case scenario. It assumes full build out of both the general plan and also of the transit corridors plan. And it also assumes that there would be no change. It takes into account some change in commute habits, but they're relatively small. It doesn't address how people might commute 10 years from now or 15 years from now. So in order to certify the EIR, the City Council must make findings that the benefits of the plan outweigh the unavoidable impacts identified in the EIR. The City's Planning Commission has reviewed this proposed project and found that the anticipated benefits outweigh the unavoidable impacts. The Planning Commission has recommended that the City Council approve a statement of overriding considerations, finding that the anticipated benefits outweigh, that is to say, override the significant and unavoidable impacts, and approve the project. The Transit Corridors Plan is expected to produce a number of benefits that do outweigh the impacts. I'm just going to go over a few of those. The first one is revitalization of the oldest parts of the city. The plan will remove barriers to private investment in the area by encouraging replacement of aging, underutilized commercial land uses that no longer meet 21st century needs with new mixed-use development. Community and economic benefits. The plan promotes the creation of new jobs and opportunities for residents to live and work in San Bruno. It will promote a range of rental and for-sale housing near transit, shopping, and public services. New development will contribute to the tax base of the city through property tax, sales tax, and transient occupancy tax. The plan will provide transportation improvements. The plan conforms with San Bruno's recently adopted Complete Streets policy and will make pedestrian comfort, safety, and convenience a priority. The transit corridors area will be the transit hub of the city, containing 2 train stations and connections to bus routes, making the area an appropriate location for more compact development. Regional planning and state law. The plan will also help the city to comply with regional and state laws related to regional housing needs and greenhouse gas reduction targets as provided in AB 32 and SB 375, as well as other regional planning efforts such as the Grand Boulevard Initiative. And I'm going to move on to implementation of the plan. Given the current uncertain economic climate with RDA funds no longer available and the continuing economic downturn, it is unlikely that significant changes will occur in the transit corridors area in the near term. However, the city does look forward to a vision for a revitalized modern downtown and transit corridors area being realized over time as new projects are proposed and approved in this important area of San Bruno. Full implementation of the Transit Corridors Plan requires 2 important future steps. First, it requires revisions to the city's zoning ordinance, and second, it would require a citywide vote to amend Ordinance 1284. A comprehensive update to the city's zoning code is currently underway, which is separately required to implement the city's general plan. If the transit corridors plan is approved, the code update will include the relevant elements of the transit corridors plan. Just to keep you up to date, a study session is scheduled on February 20th on the zone code update, and staff anticipates that a public review draft of the zone code will be completed by this summer. The transit corridors plan proposes allowing structures higher than 3 stories or 50 feet, some above-ground parking garages, and increased residential densities within the proposed project area. A voter initiative must be approved by a majority of the electorate in order to change these standards, which were established by Ordinance 1284. The items before the council tonight for your consideration are 3 resolutions. One involves certifying the final environmental impact report, adopting the mitigation, monitoring, and reporting program, and the statement of overriding considerations. The second one is a resolution amending the general plan, including changes to the land use map and text. And the third is approval of the transit corridors plan itself with the revisions and corrections that are attached to the resolution. And in addition, staff seeks direction from the council regarding a citywide election to amend Ordinance 1284. If the city council approves the resolution, we would be asking for your guidance on how to proceed with Ordinance 1284 to fully implement the transit corridors plan. The initiative could be placed on a special election ballot in June or the general election ballot in November. The June special election would cost approximately $180,000. The June date would also have a short time frame to prepare, and it could be difficult to meet. Placing the initiative on the next general election in November would cost approximately $15,000. The November election would also give staff more time to achieve making that the goal of getting it on the November ballot. And with that, that concludes my presentation.
Any questions of staff? Just for clarification, the amendment to 1284, that's just in the transit corridor area, or does
Yes.
that apply to, say, Bay Hill?
No, it's
No,
just applies
just in the-
inside the boundary of the transit corridors area.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. Any questions of staff at this time? Ken?
Along those lines, 1284, I mean, was there a discussion about repealing 1284, or amending it to, to affect the other areas such as Bay Hill or other commercial areas other than the transit corridor? Or are we strictly going to put on the ballot something that you're voting to amend 1284 or exclude 1284 as it resides within the transit corridor plan?
Yes, the latter. The discussion during the development of the transit corridors plan was to amend Ordinance 1284 just with respect to the property inside the transit corridors area.
So is it staff's belief that, or staff's feeling that 1284 is still valid, throughout the rest of the community?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else, Irene? Okay. This is a public hearing. I'd like to open the public hearing at this time. Would any members of the public like to address the council on this item? Come to the podium and tell us your name and your street. Thank you.
My name is Russell Steins, and I live at 851 Reed in San Bruno. And a couple things. One is, first of all, 1284, if you're going to amend it for just a corridor, then I think that that's not fair to the people that this is, the residents that happens to this impact for this. I think if you're going to do, I think that you should put 1284 and then let everybody vote on it, that you're looking at putting a 7-story, 5-story building 5 doors down from my house if it was built there. So I'd like to know if anybody did anything about, checking the impact on the price of homes, what would happen to the existing homes in that area. I think that we need to redo what we have and not build buildings. It says here that you want to put a mixed housing commercial corridor in front of my house. I don't think that that's right. I don't see that being a benefit to anybody that lives on any of those streets there on that side of El Camino. When they built Redwood City up, they built it in the heart of Redwood City, where the existing commercial buildings were. And I just think that if you're going to put a ballot measure on there for 1284, and it's only going to be concerning the people that this is going to affect at this time, that I think it should affect all of San Bruno. If you're going to change, you can't just change. That ordinance was put there for a reason, and that reason was to keep residential properties residential and commercial properties commercial. And you guys are all of a sudden, because you want to develop these areas, you're going to impact the housing. My house for sure. I don't know about anybody else's, but my house for sure you're going to impact. So I'd like to know if you guys have done a study on what happens to the houses that are behind this 70-foot tall building that you want to put in front of my house. Has anybody done that?
Okay, we'll get an answer for you.
Okay, number one. Number two, I'd also like to know if anybody on the city council lives in any of these areas. Does anybody that voted for this live anywhere on the city council, live anywhere in this area?
First of all, nobody's voted on it yet.
Oh, okay.
So
Anybody that's talking about amending this or doing this, Mark,
we have
do you live in this area here?
we have a couple of council members that have recused themselves because they own property.
Exactly,
in the area,
and
so.
you know what their answer would be to this. So that's why they've had to excuse themselves, and you won't let them vote. So, I mean,
I don't want to get it back and forth, but Irene has a comment. Irene?
They're recusing themselves not because they want to, but they
because
have
they
to.
have to. I understand.
Well, and because I also own property in that area, but I was able to stay here and vote because you have to have at least 3 people to vote on anything like
Okay,
this.
well,
So
can the rest of us choose who we want to be up there to vote instead of you?
no.
Why
The
not?
short answer is no.
Why not?
I was chosen a year ago, I believe. It was
By
a
who?
straw. It was a straw vote. It was
Okay.
my name
We
was
don't- we
pulled
don't-
out of a hat.
Well,
So just so the reason I'm saying something is because so that you know that I have some personal
Do you live
feeling
there?
for that area.
Do you live there?
No, but I grew up on Fifth
I
Avenue.
know where you grew up, and I know that, we went through this whole thing with the sewer issue, and I knew that you guys had your mind made up before I came up here, and we went through this whole thing last time I came here. So I just want to know, do you guys have your mind made up on this right now? Because
if we had our mind made up, there wouldn't be any public hearing or anything. This is a process that involves the whole city.
Okay,
We had
because,
four, let me explain something.
Okay.
All right? And your time is up, but being
All right.
that this is very important, all right? We had 4 years of discussion on this, public hearings down in San Mateo Avenue, a number of them attended by not only the 17 members of the community that were on this committee, but a lot of residents also. So it's no secret as to what's going on. It's no secret of the input that everybody put into this, and this is the outcome of all of that. Very, very well thought out, and very well thought out of our consultants. I'm going to get an answer for you if we have an answer for you regarding the price of homes or the effect of those types of things. But this is nothing that is predetermined. This was done after over 4 years of thought. A very well thought out process. So I want you to know that. I want everybody to know that. We don't take this stuff lightly.
no, I understand.
All right.
I understand.
All right.
I just.
No, I understand.
I wish you lived on Reed. Is all I can say.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this? Yes? Just tell us your name and your street. Thank you.
Thomas Wells, 871 Easton Avenue. I just want to address the building mass and possible language that could be in the code to determine what the massing would be. I mean, a lot of the pictures that were shown of the step backs, which occur over, say, 3 stories in height, still gave the buildings a huge presence on the street in what I would call a brick. It's just a big flat plane. And I would encourage the staff to introduce some language in there that gave the ability to the developer to vary the planes of the building by, say, I'm just shooting from the hip here, but if they step back their building below the required height, that they would give the opportunity to project the building at an upper height, and therefore give some ability to the designer to have, say, a tall object next to a step-backed object, and have the ability to really play with the facade. Because if you if a developer has a series of parcels strung together over about 150 feet, what you're going to get is a 150-foot long brick of a facade. And also, I would encourage some language that gave the impression, enabled the designer to make it look like there are separate buildings of reasonable size, separate parcels. Let's say they still had that 150-foot long building, but they were encouraged to give a separate identity to different segments, say a 50-foot segment, a 50-foot segment, a 50-foot segment, to reduce the scale to a more human scale, to make it feel like there are separate parcels that may be connected on the interior, but they have a different character on the outside. And thank you very much.
Sure, thank you. Let me just say that it should be noted, I want to emphasize that anything that happens there over the next number of years has to go through the planning process. So architectural review, citizen participation. So it's not that the examples they put on the screen were just in fact examples of types of things that could possibly happen, but they were just superimposed, and they're not by any way, shape, or form done already or decided upon. So it has to go through a process, a very intense process for the city, especially going forward. All right,
and if I could add, Mr. Mayor, as a design professional in this community, a lot has changed in the last 20 years, 25 years. And believe me, I like to call myself a good designer, but I'm constantly challenged even today. And it's a give and take, and it's a having to answer to a client to say, no, we can't do that anymore. And just because it's happening down the street, designs have changed to respect even more adjacent residences and communities. So I think it's the design guidelines are good for the most part for residential, and they're even stricter now for what they're proposing for the transit corridors.
Anyone else? Mr. Peterson?
Harry Peterson, Scenic Court. I'm also on the Planning Commission, but I'm speaking here as an individual. All of the reason I'm here is because I was at the Planning Commission meeting when it was voted to recommend approval of the Transit Corridor Plan. And there, in your packet tonight, you have 190 pages, no, 238 pages, 190 pages of it, and that's not even counting the plan. 190 pages of it is the Planning Department presentation to you. Buried on page 172 are a few things that were said in the Planning Commission meeting. And in particular, the thing that concerns me, the reason I came tonight, was at the meeting when it was voted to forward the resolution to you with a recommendation, part of that vote was to include two comments. One, that as part of the plan there should be a section called the Resident Protection Program, which would gather together all the elements of the plan that were designed to recognize the concern of residents that are living in the avenues areas in particular. And secondly, the second recommendation of the Commission to the Council was to recognize that the format of the Transit Corridors Plan was going to be used by developers and the public and the Council for many years to guide this process. And the recommendation is that the format be improved. Some of the defects in the format were a small type size, a faint color of type size, photographs that had no relationship to the adjacent text, and similar. So I'm bringing this to your attention and asking that you consider it in your approval of any steps to go forward, that the format of this document, well, I should say something else. I said it, other commissioners said it, this is a good document. It's important, it's necessary, it's well conceived and will be a good guide. But in order to carry out that role, it has to be more readable. The type has to be easy to read. If there are pictures, there should be a reason for them, and the diagrams are pathetically small type. They're almost illegible. So it sounds like a plea, and it is. We talked tonight about Ordinance 1284. This document, which the Commission was given and which I believe at this time is the only document you have, did not even address Ordinance 1284. Staff recognized that. One of my comments on the review of this document was there was no reference to 1284. I think my read of the city, having lived here since 1976 and been on the Planning Commission for many years, the residents of the city are interested in having this plan go forward, but they're still interested in Ordinance 1284. And I would recommend that the council take steps with staff to better explain in more human terms what the transit corridor plan will do for the city and for the residents. And partly because of that, I think it's very valuable to have that document entitled a Resident Protection Plan, which will explain to the residents and to any voters for that matter what steps the city will undertake, such as design reviews as mentioned by staff, to make sure that the residents adjacent to, as a good example, San Bruno Avenue from 101 up to El Camino, what the city will do to make sure the residents aren't totally trampled by the effects of increased development. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you. Anyone else like to address the council? Mr. Rico?
Robert Rico, 7th Avenue. Just a couple of quick things. I served on the Transit Corridor Plan Committee for probably 3 or 4 of the years, as David, as Mark, and Laura have told you tonight, there are many safeguards in there. There are many steps that need to be taken before any specific piece of property can change and begin to comply with any of the proposed desires or suggestions in the plan. The pictures, the architectural renderings or whatever are just examples of what could be happen at a particular location. I would ask affirmative vote, a majority of all three of you on the three resolutions to let this move forward. Let the public then, as the Planning Commission, as the Architectural Review, and as the City Council has the opportunities going forward to vote on specifics. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the council? Tell us your name and your street, please. Thank you.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Serena Ip. I'm actually not a resident of San Bruno, but I work at a local nonprofit organization called the Housing Leadership Council of San Mateo County. We've been here several times. We've been following this plan for the past few years, and I'm here tonight to also urge you to approve this plan and adopt the resolutions that are necessary to accept the final EIR and to amend the general plan. We support this plan because it includes housing policies that are consistent with the type of housing that we do need in our community here. Diverse housing types, housing near transportation, and in close proximity to jobs, retail stores, restaurants, and banks in the downtown area. I grew up in this area, and to be honest, I grew up in Pacifica, and I can't wait to move out of Pacifica because it has nothing going on. And when my dad said, "Where do you want to live?" I said, "Well, right now I'd like to live in San Mateo, but if San Bruno can get this plan going that I happen to just know about because of my work, that's somewhere where I would like to live, where there's a lot of people out and about, somewhere I could show my college friends who visit a place that I can just walk out and go to and have fun in and not have to go to the city all the time." So I'm excited about this plan personally, and also as an organization. We've been here, I think you've already heard from us several times throughout the last few years. We really appreciate your community process of getting everyone involved. We know that you've invited us to several, or you've notified the community of several meetings that you've had in the past few years, so we're excited to see this plan move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes.
Paula Bradley, I live on 2nd Avenue. I've brought up this issue at other public meetings, but I wanted to ask a question about the portion of San Bruno Avenue between 1st and 7th Avenue. It says mixed use, but we're in the high decibel, no additional residential, so what mixed use is it going to be? Yeah, I don't understand why we need 5 stories if it's not going to be, you know, businesses with residential above. And I don't think you can put any more residences there, so that's my question.
Okay, I got an answer for you. All right. Anything else?
Well, as I said at the previous meeting, I think it should stay at 3 stories for that portion of San Bruno Avenue.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Paul Ram. I'm a property owner on Easton Avenue. I just had a question about the permitted parking. How would that work in the residential streets? And my other question was about how the city, like the pictures, the renditions look beautiful, but without eminent domain, how can the city help property owners, or how will the new money come in to develop some of these projects?
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, to staff a question here about, were any studies done, or a portion of the studies that were done address property values in and around the new development at all?
The environmental impact report analyzes environmental impacts.
A little closer.
Oh, excuse me, sorry. The environmental impact report analyzes environmental impacts. So it did take a look at how new buildings, and the development proposed in the transit corridors area would affect properties on a physical level, but it didn't look at the financial impacts, and so no, there were no. There's not an analysis of the effect on the economics of surrounding properties.
Okay. All right. I think it was Connie?
If I could just add, as you heard in the staff's presentation, there is a required project-by-project review and analysis that will occur with any implementation of the plan that will take into consideration very specifically any and all impacts that may relate to the surrounding neighborhood. It is not typical that we do an economic evaluation of financial impacts to the property, but by careful evaluation of the physical impacts, it is expected that to the maximum extent possible, those are taken into consideration and that they are evaluated as part of what creates a successful project.
All right, thank you. I believe it was Paula that asked about mixed use from 1st to 7th up towards El Camino. Could you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, she's right that new residential is not allowed in that area. So the plan proposes mixed use, which is essentially commercial mixed use, which would allow, say, office on top. So that would basically be the option would be retail and office, and that would be the type of mixed use. And obviously that would be more significant in the station area where you can, you have a larger development site and you can do a more significant project. But that's what the plan proposes is mixed commercial uses along the eastern portion of San Bruno Avenue.
Nope. Does that apply to the Reed area too?
Which area?
The Reed area.
Noise contour.
That's within the north.
If
Does
I
that
understand
also-
your question, in the Reed area around your home, no, that rule does not apply. She's talking about on San Bruno Avenue in the airport noise contour.
Okay. And lastly, I think it was Paul asked about, could you expand a little bit on the permit parking situation, what's proposed?
So the details would have to be developed of how the program could be expanded. But there is an existing program within the community where residents are given permits that they put into their cars, and there's also provisions for guests, for people who are visiting people who live in the area. And then those permits are displayed within your vehicle. And then that gives the police department an opportunity to do enforcement of those people that are not permitted to park there.
Okay, thank you. All right, this is a public hearing, heard from the public, and if we close the public hearing, you're going to be precluded from discussing this matter with us again. So I just want to make sure everybody's had a chance. Any action?
I want you guys to think about.
We're on cable TV, so if you're going to speak to us.
I thought you said I could.
Yeah, but you really need to speak at the podium, and if you can make it quick, I'll give you another. Yeah, thank you.
I would just like you guys to think about the financial impact of the San Bruno residents, and then I can't imagine that nobody actually knows the answer to that question after 4 years about property value, what happens to all the people in San Bruno that have homes there. It baffles me. Thank you.
Thank you. We had one more speaker. Just tell us your name and your street.
My name is Catherine
And
Dubon.
pull that microphone a little bit closer to you.
My name is Catherine Dubon, and I live in 7th Avenue. And I just wanted to remind you how we purchased homes for our families in San Bruno because it was a town, and where the parks are and the schools are, and our kids, can, ride their bikes and be safe without too much outside people coming in that don't live in the city of San Bruno. There's a lot of people that have actually struggled a lot to stay in San Bruno with all the economy that has gone up and down, and people have lost their homes. But the ones who are still here are the ones that, really worked hard towards, keeping their home and being able to live in the town that they fell in love with 15 years ago. Like myself, all my children were born in my home. So bringing in businesses and offices and all this into the street of San Bruno Avenue, I would be right behind that, because I'm the first house behind all this construction that's going to be happening. And I know that there's several other homes all through the side, all the way to the railroad tracks, that are also going to be affected the same as myself here. But I just don't think it's the right thing. Like the other cities that I've heard before in other hearings that have done these kind of remodeling and modernization, it has been in commercial areas. I've heard like Millbrae Avenue, 3rd Avenue, all those are far from residences. They're all stores and, commercial. But being that there's homes so close to where you're going, or you plan to do all these constructions, I think it's not appropriate, and that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Good. Anyone else? Yes.
My name is Sunil, and I live on Euclid Avenue. And my question is that I'm very much excited with the transit corridor plan, and the areas other than the TCP, will the zoning change? And if the zoning changes for our property, what impact it will have on us? And if it doesn't suit us, then how much time frame will be given so that we decide what we have to do?
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Yes?
Rob Hagee, 100 Portola Way. I'm not going to be affected directly by this, but my question is if you're going to put this, to revise Ordinance 1284, is it just going to be very specific, to that area? And I'm really not inclined to, put these monstrous structures near, because then I think you're going to start putting things near my house, okay? And I really don't want you to, start doing that, because I just feel that this goes on and on. And my other question is, when you say this is a mixed housing thing, are these like private condos being sold, rental units, and are they going to be full pay rental? Or is the government, because I don't also want, because I was born and raised in San Francisco, and I don't want federal housing projects in San Bruno either. So that's my comment.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? We'll get some answers. First of all, comments have been made about the city bringing things in. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to make things as we've tried over the last number of years, but the economy has forced us in another direction. We're trying to make it attractive for people to come here. A lot of people said to us in some of the area, for instance, over by the crossing there, why can't you bring in so-and-so? Why can't you bring in so-and-so? Well, we've had a number of opportunities to bring in a typical kind of restaurant, let's just say, over there. But we, as San Bruno, didn't fit into the cookie-cutter mold of a lot of them. Financially, it wasn't feasible for people to come into the city because of this economy. And now things seem to be turning around a little bit, and we're getting a lot of interest. A perfect example is 5 very good hotel developers that want to develop the last site over by 380, a hotel for this city, which we really don't have, a full-service hotel. And so it's becoming more attractive for people to invest in our town, and I think that's good. But, you know, the one thing I can't emphasize enough is that we're not proposing to build 5, 6, 7 stories here or there. We have no plan in place to do that. But if, in fact, it can be compatible with the area after this train station is done, and it works with your input, then I think it's a good thing. But the key is your input. That's what it's all about. That's why we went to the public process of 4 years and more to get the input of 17 business people and local residents, and had numbers of public hearings on all of this. So I also want to say that, you know, the discussion has been brought up about eminent domain and taking our properties and things. A number of years ago, when we didn't have redevelopment, and we were really hurting because it was available to us, but people were worried about us taking your property, we finally voted in redevelopment. And part of that was with myself and former Mayor Simon, is we started residential conservation areas in the city to preclude us from taking anything by eminent domain. This transit corridors plan has the same type of protection there too. We have no intentions of taking properties. I understand some of the properties along San Mateo Avenue are close to the street, and if in fact we make it attractive for people to come in, we'll be very sensitive to the fact that those residents are there and some are close by. That's why we talked about setbacks and stepbacks, so that you don't have a mass like you have not too far away down in El Camino Real, right down near us, where it's right on the sidewalk and the thing is 5 or 6 stories tall. That's not our intent, but the key here is your input. That's my 2 cents here. And then I just want to emphasize, the question was brought up about 1284, and it only applied to the transit corridors area. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, all right. Let me see. And the zoning change. Someone brought up about the zoning change. Yeah. How does it how will it affect
the surrounding area?
Yes.
There would be no changes to the surrounding area in the zoning.
Okay.
Would only be inside the transit corridors area.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. And if I may just go back to an earlier question that Russell Stein, I think, had about the he was concerned about the economic impact on his home and homes in the surrounding area. And although, you know, we haven't done a specific economic impact analysis on properties, anecdotal evidence and experience in other communities, and which we've reviewed in, you know, articles and so forth that have been written about this type of development, transit corridors plans, which have occurred in a lot of places, including, you know, in neighboring cities, that they have been a benefit to the community, not just to the project that's built there, but, you know, when you have more and better businesses, you have better access to transit. You have, you know, more pleasant sidewalks. You have a better streetscape. You know, logically, that sort of makes a better environment for people to live in, not only inside the area, but it benefits the surrounding area as well.
Okay. And also to Catherine, I believe on 7th Avenue, it's our intention to improve the city, not to put a big shadow on your properties. We want to make it more livable for everybody going forward. You can see what they've done in other cities. A perfect example is a decrepit old ballpark and piers down in San Francisco, and you go down there now and it's vibrant. It's alive, it's young, and it's an entirely different city. And a lot of that was tied together by Museum of Modern Art and a new stadium. We have a great separation here, and we have a potential to take that old theater down and do something decent with it, and that'll tie that whole part of this transit corridors plan together, that street. So the opportunities are great. I look forward to working with all of you on this going forward, and we are very, very sensitive and have been throughout this whole process. So if there's no more discussion, I'll ask for a motion to, why don't we close the public hearing first? would like to move on?
I'll move to,
If I could ask a question first, and it might spur on more input. The Planning Commission, if you could elaborate more on what Mr. Peterson said as far as the Planning Commission's discussion and what revisions they added and comments they added to their approval of the plan, because he did mention this. I'm curious to see how the Planning Commission reacted to the Residents Protection Plan.
So Commissioner Peterson described his vision of a resident protection plan. So staff went back and pulled out elements of the plan that addressed that concern. How would we address existing residents? And so that's included in your packet, and we've retitled it the Mixed Use to Residential Transition Measures. And staff actually proposes that that be integrated into the plan. So we propose that that be a new Appendix A that would go with the plan permanently, so the community and applicants would be aware that this is a concern and a significant a thing to be addressed through every project. And so that handout includes things like the public review process, the fact that every project would have a public meeting, the new finding of fact that I discussed in my presentation, talking about analysis of the transition from new projects to residential. That would provide an opportunity for the public to provide feedback on that as well. So staff would do the initial analysis, the Planning Commission or Architectural Review Committee would take feedback on those measures, and projects would not be able to be approved unless the Planning Commission or Architectural Review Committee could make that legal finding that the transition had been considered. This handout, the transition measures, also discusses building design. So that's the development standards of the setbacks and the stepbacks. We've included the design guidelines that are specifically related to the transition. We've discussed the approved land uses, so some of the changes in the land uses that could occur that could be considered beneficial to residential neighborhoods, as well as the parking and transportation, the things that could be considered positives, as well as the residential permit program that could mitigate any concerns. So we would propose that that be included in the plan and go forward as a clear statement that the residential neighborhoods are to be respected with the plan.
If I could follow up on that, I don't want to give the public any false sense of security here, because again, I'm a design professional, and the bottom line is to maximize the investment, and maximize the development, and in relation to the cost of the land and square footage and things. And what if a developer came in and an El Camino property with a residential zoning adjacent, or a San Bruno Avenue property with a residential neighborhood adjacent? What if they complied with the setback? What if they complied with the step back, and they had articulation, and they did like the other gentleman said, and they made it look like it was separate buildings and stuff? It could still be very overpowering for the residents. I mean, because they're in their little one-story, in many cases 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 20-foot tall, house, and here you have this development right next to it. So I know the attributes and the great things that that this can do for a community. But this gentleman, all these people are in fear, just like they did for those previous 10 years that eminent domain was lurking. They were in fear of a developer and getting that public notice that says something's going to happen, next door or across the street, something, and then all of a sudden they have to, bound together, and and it's almost like they have to get ready to fight because they don't feel secure with with the process. And I think we have to give them those assurances, and I think this is maybe this is good enough, but maybe it's not good enough for for those residents that are actually adjacent to the zoning.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Discussion or action by the council?
I have a few questions.
Irene?
One of my concerns is that a developer will come in and buy a lot or buy a business, and it'll sit empty until the next business, the next lot comes along, and then the next lot, and pretty soon it's 5 years or 10 years, and you've got 3 empty lots or an empty lot and a business, and we've lived through empty lots with nothing on them. We have businesses that have been fenced off and sitting there for 15 years, however long it is. The former bank site on San Bruno Avenue in Huntington there is a prime example. Those are horrible things to live next to. What are we going to do to assure people that something will be done, that the properties will be kept up until the developer actually does the development? Do we have restrictions on what can be done, what can't be done, what would be kept up, all those kinds of things?
I have 2 thoughts on that. One is that the plan was written to be a market-based plan, so that it would incentivize developers to develop projects. So the sort of the profit incentive is, I think, the carrot that pushes this forward and hopefully prevents that type of delaying you buying a parcel and you're waiting for that next one to get your complete development site. So I think that's one thing is there's an economic incentive to move forward. People don't generally a savvy developer does not buy a property and sit on it, although we've had some different experiences here. But the other thing too, I think, and maybe Laura can speak more to this, is that we are in the process of updating our zoning code, and there could be something that we could look into in terms of we do have in our code enforcement process, we have rules about what you should or shouldn't do with your vacant property. We could potentially strengthen those, and as I say, we could think about doing something in the zoning code.
I appreciate the difficulty of what I'm asking, but is there anything that we can do in this plan to make it clear to developers that we don't want an empty building, we don't want a lot that sits around and gets trashed? Can we, I have no idea, but we've all experienced those lots on San Bruno Avenue. They've been empty and ugly and dirty and everything undesirable you can think of for years now, and nothing much has been done about it. I realize that if we change this and we get the plan in place, and that might incentivize people, but still, that's not an assurity. Is there something we can do that would assure, at least in a more positive way, assure that something gets done? Or can we, if you can't answer me, can we look into it and come back? Okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
I have some more if you want to.
Go ahead.
Okay. You talked about the parking requirements changing from a 1-bedroom, it used to be 2, and you're proposing that it be 1 parking space for 1 bedroom. And I'm sorry, I don't remember what we did, or if we changed the proposal to change parking requirements for businesses and offices. Is it still the same per square X amount of parking per square footage? Are we changing it, or should we look at changing it the closer you are to transit? Would that be an incentive if you're you need less parking if you're right next door to the train station, or those kinds of things.
So the transit corridors plan does outline some kind of broad brush statements in regards to parking, and it does recommend a reduction in parking in pretty much all land uses. So for example, retail parking in downtown right now is 4 spaces per 1,000, and the transit corridor plan would recommend 3 spaces per 1,000. Office space immediately adjacent to the train station would be quite a bit less than our standard code requirement today. The exact details of that, of exactly how we would implement those parking standards, would come back to the City Council for consideration as part of the comprehensive zoning code update.
Okay. Okay. Let me read my notes and I'll come back.
Ken, you have anything? No? Go for it.
Well, I don't have any questions or anything, and I mean, the gentleman, Mr. Steins, I mean, I feel for you but yes, I've made up my mind on this. I've made up my mind 4 years ago. I made up my mind 17 years ago when I was elected to this, to sit on this dais. And ironically, I'm sitting with 2 of my colleagues now for the last 17 years. And I think we've got a track record of making good decisions in improving this community. Yeah, we were faced with wanting to make changes, but we didn't have any tools to do it with. We didn't have redevelopment. And if we never got redevelopment, you wouldn't see anything along El Camino. You'd see a bunch of, probably right now, you'd see a bunch of vacant auto dealerships, and you would probably see a ghost town where Tan Fran is if we didn't have redevelopment. And you definitely wouldn't see the crossing. We are geared towards satisfying our residents, but it has to be a new attitude. The thing is that we're living in a bedroom community that was developed 50 years ago, 50, 60 years ago. That's not happening anymore, and it's not going to go away. It's just that now we need to run a city that that's not working in the commercial areas now. We came onto this council and we're faced with, what are you going to do about the downtown? What are you going to do about El Camino? Every time a business closes, what are we going to do? When are we going to get, I remember 17 years ago, why can't you get Starbucks? And the answer was, well, why would Starbucks want to come here? So we faced a lot of challenges 17 years ago. And I believe now we have 6 Starbucks. We have a beautiful regional shopping center. We have thousands of high-end rental units at the crossings. We have a nice restaurant that you can't get into now. And we need to look forward. 17 years, and now we need to try and get our residents, who are the bread and butter of our community, to buy into this. And that's why I say, I'm not going to ignore a resident who fears that he's going to have staring at 7 stories, in a couple of years or something. And that's why I'm concerned that we do implement some major, guidelines, in that zoning code, so that, so the residents don't, they can be confident that that we're going to protect them, and that that the developers know that they're not going to be able to, get something in edgewise or something. So that's something that residents always distrust. It's nice to show nice renderings. It's nice to Photoshop a lot of nice things with with 100-year-old trees and things, but that's not what it actually looks like, when it's all said and done. It may take time. And I believe they need the security, they need the trust, and they need to know that we are truly looking at their best interests, and it's not just a bunch of, words in a document. But again, everything that I've been involved in this community, and that I have fought for, whether it's development along El Camino, whether it's a railroad track, grade separation, has been in the interest of improving this community and sensitive to everyone around it. And I believe it's worked. Like I said, we've come a long way. I mean, there's people like, George Fiscardo and Aaron Aikman and, all the staff that have worked so hard. And we've been on the same page, and we've had meetings with many residents and input, and we just weren't just going through the motions to implement something. We were truly, going through it with the interest of, with everyone's interest in mind. So I hope there are residents that, can learn to buy into this, even if it's not something that you really, can foresee right now, because we want you to be proud. 17 years ago, there was not a lot of pride in this community as far as the commercial aspect of it, as far as coming into San Bruno. We were all just in our own homes, and we were pride of ownership in our homes. But, the town, was faced with a lot of challenges. So this plan is the rest of our lives. And I believe it's going to be the right thing to do in the long term and even in the short term, because it gives us the tools. Because everything that's laid out right now, you can get 3 stories right across the street from you in a big block building, and we really wouldn't have anything we could do about it. Now we're empowering everyone, and also trying to make it look good. So.
Irene?
Thank you. I just want to echo what you said, Ken, and it has been a long haul, and we can't please everyone, but we really, truly make the effort to make the city as a whole as best as we can. I guess the question is, if we approve the resolutions that we have in front of us, does that preclude us from making any changes in any substantive way? Because I would like to see us strengthen somehow or another, leaving empty lots or, trash around or anything that detracts from what people are trying to do. So I guess that's a procedural question.
This is a living document, isn't it? This is something we can be changing, I don't want to say left and right, but, we can constantly be hopefully improving it.
If I may, through the chair, I think as Mr. Sullivan indicated, probably the next way to do that would be through amendments to the zoning code, which I think he indicated would be coming back to you for review. Okay. So we can certainly take a look at those and find ways to strengthen our existing ordinances that we have, recognizing that we can't make people develop their property, but we can adopt ordinances that requires them to take care of it. And we have ordinances that do that now, but we'll certainly look at strengthening them.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? If there's nothing else, we have 3 resolutions. What's your pleasure?
I'll introduce the first resolution. Do you want me to?
The first resolution is adopt a resolution certifying the final environmental impact report for the San Bruno Transit Corridors Plan.
Vice Mayor O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.
And I'll introduce the second resolution, which is?
Adopt a resolution amending the general plan to ensure consistency with the Transit Corridors Plan.
Vice Mayor O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.
And
you want to do the last
you
one?
want it to trifecta? I'll take the big one. The resolution. I'll introduce a resolution adoption of the Transit Corridors Plan.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Aye.
Vice Mayor O'Connell.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. And regarding the next steps, I think it's pushing it to try to get this on a summer ballot. I think we want to get this on the November ballot. That's my feeling.
Yes.
Irene? Yes.
If I could, before everyone clears out, I mean, a few people got up there and residents and, had their hearts into being against this and possibly being concerned. And that's obviously a very small minority. And I think I can speak for us and for our colleagues sitting out in the hall. One person makes a big difference too. And I'm looking right at you, sir, and I'm going to, and you can be, you can be on me, for the rest of this year, making sure that, that I'm looking out for you and everyone down the street from you and everyone that's adjacent, because that is something that, we have to take into account and we have to be accountable for. So that's all I can offer to you, and and we'll take those seriously into consideration.
Will somebody do a financial impact to homes, or no? That's just going to be a non.
We'll take that into consideration. Yeah. We're not done with this by any means. So
We'll
this
get
is a
some
living
for
document. So, right. Okay. So staff, you have the direction you need.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We'll just take a 5-minute break and let our council members come back in and let you clear out if you so desire.